Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to another episode of Battle of the Brackets. Today's bracket, if you didn't see from the title already, is Best Double Act, and we're going through the bracket in just a second. But today's fighters is, of course, me, George, Tate, and we're actually having a switch around this time around. Dave isn't our judge for tonight. He's actually one of our four fighters, and Harry will be doing the judging. So we were chatting about this before we went live. Thank God none of us have to fight Harry this time. He is the juggernaut in the competition. I'm sure he'll be back for the next one. But this one, I always say it, but this one is wide open as a bracket this time. I think there's going to be a lot of upsets. Last time got pretty heated if anyone tuned in for our last Battle of the Brackets. And I think it's going to be exactly the same on this one today.
I'm excited. This is a bracket where, I mean, we've been looking at this for a few days now since we've done the draft for it and stuff like that. And normally you can have a little bit of insight. You think, oh, yeah, maybe that's a favorite or maybe that's got a chance. I'm looking at this right now. I'm going like, my God, I don't even know what's going to make it past round one. I probably will predict all of them wrong for round one as well. It's so wide open. Sometimes you kind of have an inkling of, oh, yeah, that's a definite favorite and stuff like that. I can't call a definite favorite on this one. I can't even call an underdog pick for this one because a lot of them are underdog picks. And a lot
but there is actually a dog in the pick.
There is a dog in the pick. In fact, yeah.
That's right. I bring the dog to underdog.
We'll go over the actual picks in a minute. But first, we always start with the socials. So please tell us what you think your favorite double act is. There are certain rules that come into this bracket, which I guess we'll have to explain before we go into it. But please tell us what you think is your favorite double act. What do you reckon is going to win off the list that we've got today? Please tell us that in the comments below. And if you want to find out about our latest videos coming up, then please go onto Facebook. Just type in Cinema Savvy as always. Go onto Twitter at cinema_savvy. And if you want to go into the description, click on the link to TeePublic and pick up a t-shirt. Please also subscribe because we are getting so close now to our yearly end goal and we don't have much time left, so we got to get there, guys. So please subscribe, share the video, like, comment, do all of that jazz. I am now going to pass you over to George, who's going to not only explain this bracket and the criteria for the bracket, but also the rules.
Absolutely. So, guys, if you are new to Battle of the Brackets, we're going to quickly go over the rules. We've noticed a lot of people watching more of our stuff, so this is episode number 26 now. So if you do end up enjoying this, or it's in one of our other two ones, there are plenty to go through. They don't all look as good as this in terms of graphics and whatnot. We've kind of steadily evolved them over the years, so there's also a laugh in there if you want to have a look. However, that being said, the rules are as follows. Each fighter is given 1 minute to argue their choice, followed by a 30-second rebuttal. So you'll have the person on the left-hand side of the bracket up first, his minute. Then it's the one on the right getting a minute, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. Following on from that, the three non-fighters, so we'll have Harry, who is judging tonight, and the two who have chosen not to fight in this one, they are going to be putting someone through to the next round. Based off the argument, always the key word, based off the argument, I need to explain why they put that film through or the choice through. Following up to then, obviously, we get our little bracket down to a final. Now, they're going to keep going through to the next round, and if we do get to the final, we do give people more time. So each fighter is given an extra 30 seconds to argue and defend their choice. So they get 1 minute 30 for the main attack. And I believe a minute for the rebuttal. I always get this wrong. I don't know why.
No, you're right. You're right.
26 times now. However, so they are the rules. We already have Carl in the comments who has given his favorite double act. And absolutely, if we included TV, we already had our winner. I was actually thinking of that about 5 minutes ago. Anyway, so let's have a look at the bracket. So rather than the bracket story, I'm going to introduce our fighters. Chris has given us our lovely introduction. Let's go through one by one. So we're bringing back Chris. His first choice is Gimli and Legolas. Second choice is Daniel LaRusso and Mr. Miyagi. Third choice is Andy Dufresne and Red. Fourth choice is Woody and Buzz Lightyear. So Chris is currently in the lead. Then we have myself. First choice is Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Indiana Jones and Henry Jones Sr. from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Peter B. Parker and Miles Morales, Spider-Man the Spider-Verse. I'm sorry, guys, I picked the really long titles with the really long names. And then we have Fred and George Weasley from the Harry Potter series. Next up, we have Tate, who has Vincent Vega and Jules Winfield from Pulp Fiction. Ray and Charlie Babbitt from Rain Man. Doc Brown and Marty McFly from Back to the Future. And we have Chuck Noland and Wilson from Castaway. And bringing in Dave fighting tonight, we can finally see. So he has gone for Jay and Silent Bob from all their films. Recently discovered that that's Clark's as well as Jay and Bob Silent Reboot. John and Jeremy from Wedding Crashers. Will Hunting and Dr. Sean Maguire, who I also didn't know was called Will Hunting. The title now means different things to me. And Turner and Hooch from Turner and Hooch. So I've learned a lot the last week about all these films. And if anyone watched the last one, you know how well my research went into that. I categorically watched every film. Didn't butcher a single anime pronunciation. So I think that went incredibly well.
Did you not?
Princess Mononoke, anyone? Was that what it was?
But yes, I do want to add to that because George is now going to pull up the bracket so you can see what is fighting each other across the first rounds and stuff like that. So you can have a look at that and pick your winner from there. The criteria for this bracket is the best film duo. So we decided that we've already done film rivalries, so they can't be a rivalry within themselves. They have to be a duo for at least some amount of the film, and also no relationships that may come into a different part of the bracket. So you can have relationships as in brothers and stuff like that, but you can't have romantic relationships as that may be coming as a later date.
And double act for this one, we've played very fast and loose with it. It is very open. Double acts are usually considered comedic, but we have opened it up a little bit more to give us a little bit more wiggle room. So there are some like student master ones in there. There are more comedic ones. It's really just broad, this one, which is why it's going to be so unpredictable to pin this one down.
Absolutely. I'm not going to read them off one by one. I'm going to prep us for the first round, unless you guys want me to read them all once more. But I'm okay with
that's
that.
Fine. We'll go along with it as it goes along.
So first up, we have Chris, who, let's be honest, guys, if you don't know him, he's putting everything on the line because Lord of the Rings is his baby. And he's got Gimli and Legolas up against Turner and Hooch, which we have.
Are you saying that Turner and Hooch isn't Dave's baby?
Wow,
my son looks so much better than that.
I thought Tom Hanks is a very attractive young man. I mean,
that's gonna come into an argument in a later film pick.
I mean, off the record, before we get to Tom Hanks, if anyone hasn't seen his son's video from yesterday on Instagram after the election results, do have a look at that. You would not believe it's his son. It's incredible. It's about 20 seconds long. That's all I'm going to say. We're not going to get into politics too much. Keep your conservative tears for yourself. So, round one.
I think you just broke your own rule there, George, instantly. Okay.
That's the point. So, round one, Chris versus Dave. Chris, you are up first. We have Harry with the timer who will prep us. So, let them begin, I guess.
Okay, Chris, whenever you're ready, buddy.
Okay, Turner and Hooch is just a bog standard man and his dog story. Anyone with a soul can instantly connect with a dog story, and it's been there, done that. It's not unique in any way. You know what is unique? A story of an elf and his dwarf. Now, with Lord of the Rings, in context of the universe, it is a unique pick in and of itself. In the world that it's in, a friendship between an elf and a dwarf is unheard of. Through years, generations of xenophobia, racism between the two, fate brings these people together in this fellowship, and they have to make the best of a bad situation. There is that instant rivalry there. As I said, years spread of all this history between the two races. And it's this fellowship, this quest that they go on, where we see this friendship blossom over this trilogy. To the point where, we get to the final climactic scene of that friendship within that final film. Never thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf. What about side by side with a friend? And that is the culminating moment there. It is unique in its universe and just in fantasy in general.
Dave, are you ready?
Never work with children or animals is a phrase you hear bandied about, but it's a good job Tom Hanks thinks differently. Turner and Hooch, let's end this bracket now. This is the ultimate pairing. A man and his dog. There is no greater duo act than that. When this dog's not yours and you come to love this dog, and not only that, go on to solve crimes. This isn't just a dog. This is his partner. This dog leads him to his new life. This is a man who was trying to get away to a bigger life and bigger crimes. He doesn't need that. He needs to be with the woman he loves, and this dog takes him there. Not only that, but they do have this overriding arch. This dog takes a bullet. Spoiler alert from the 1989 movie. The dog takes a bullet. This dog dies for Tom Hanks. And if that does not make this dog and Tom Hanks the best duo, I don't know what is. There are times when you look at this and say, can a dog be looked at as better than a person? Or a ball maybe later. But yes, it can. These guys come together and this partnership is...
Turner and Hooch takes no chances. As a story, even as a man and dog story, it doesn't do anything unique. It doesn't break the mold in any way. Even like a dead dog story, which is very manipulative at the end. You've got Old Yeller, you've got Marley and Me. These are films. There's a story structure that's been tried and tested. Legolas and Gimli in the context of fantasy in any other film is a pairing unlike any other. You have their great banter as well, counting their kills and everything, that friendly banter as they go throughout the films. And it's just a complete 3-act structure of rivals becoming friends, lifelong friends.
Why even include Legolas and Gimli in the Fellowship at all? As characters, they are pointless. They serve no integral part. They don't to part of the plot. They don't even talk to Frodo or at least all the other hobbits. Everybody else in the Fellowship has a role. These two don't. They follow Aragorn around like a lesser version of him. That's all they do. Yes, let's count how many orcs we kill, and that'll bring us together. That gets them over generations of hatred because we shot lots of orcs. No, it's not. They are just terrible, terrible characters. They aren't even. Are they even a duo? I don't think they are. You can't count these two people.
Fine.
I have thoughts, but I can't say
I'm so sorry, Chris. I'm so sorry. When I was writing it, I was like, I'm going to have to say this to Chris.
Chris's eyes for that at the end then.
Yeah, that was a very good fight to start off with. I'm going to try and voice this out because Chris had a very strong opening argument talking about his own film. He also attacked. I liked the Old Yeller comment in the rebuttal as well. That worked really well. I don't think Turner and Hooch had a very good start. I think no, it was okay. It was okay, but it wasn't up to standards with Chris's. But that rebuttal, damn. I mean, I know, like, I'm giving my point to Chris here, but I'm saying now that rebuttal almost swayed it. If your first half was just a little bit stronger, then it would have tipped me over further. But you clearly won the second half, but the first half there was more time and Chris gave it more. So I'm giving it to Chris.
Harry, are you ready?
Yeah, I can go. Yeah, I'm also going to give it to Chris for the same reasons. I just think that opening argument from Chris was just a little bit stronger. I liked it was a bit more balanced between defending his own film and just, I don't know, planting the seeds of his attacks against Turner and Hooch. I thought was a bit more effective. But again, yeah, that rebuttal was brutal. And as somebody who loves Lord of the Rings, I hate you. So, yeah, I'm going on to Chris.
I'm going a 3 for 3. I thought Dave. I've never heard Lord of the Rings given that kind of serve, so you've got my immediate respect. But I think Chris's was stronger, but I did not expect that at all from Turner and Hooch. So
I didn't expect that. That caught me off guard in the end. Like,
completely out of left field. It was just like, fuck it, I'm going to lose this anyway, so I'm just going to give it everything.
Right, Christ, that is a way to start. If people are watching at home, comment along because that was something none of us. Like I said, we don't know where this is going to go. We've not done one like this before, so we're at an open avenue for new things. And I think next up, we're just all going to admit we have the best round of round one.
next one.
We have Indiana Jones and Henry Jones. I'm a bit nervous. Versus Doc and Marty from Back to the Future.
It's a classic Tate and George.
This could have been a final, but it's round one.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get prepared, Jason.
Okay, so I think you're first with Indiana Jones and Henry Jones Sr.
Absolutely. So when someone's ready, let's get this going.
Whenever you're ready, George, go for it.
Right. Okay. So mine getting straight to the point. The third one is, to me, the best film, and that is because of Sean Connery. We don't learn a lot over the first two films. I've never been particularly fan of the first one, but how are we going to do The Last Crusade? How are we going to have this historical artifact? We're going to build up the father figure, and you think someone like Indiana Jones had this warming father, but it's the opposite. They've had this fractured relationship from him being a kid in the opening scene through to the final scene where Indiana Jones has never been what's important to him. It's always been the Holy Grail. And that's such a great way to go, because I'm going to now jump to the end and say Dr. Jones gives up his life's work and he tells Indy, let it go. It's the only time he calls him Indiana. You build up to that moment through this amazing sort of 2-hour film. and you have all the raw emotion from that, because that's just a father loving his son. It's something he's never heard. It warms your heart. It's so well done. Sean Connery's delivery is excellent. But how can you have a pairing of Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford, the greatest star of all time, and then you end up getting James Bond as his dad? Bringing them two on paper together is just more exciting than anything else we've ever had. The banter worked. No one gets...
Back to the Future, Doc and Marty, I honestly believe, is the best film duo of all time. I want to start off by talking about their relationship between themselves, because it's more than a friendship. People look at them and they think, oh, it might be like a kind of father-son duo, but Marty has a father. Marty has a father. And what Doc brings him is a new lease on life. He gives him that ability to go out and seek adventure. And on their journey, they go through so much together at different points in time. And at every point in time they meet, they are always the best of friends. They are always the confidant. They are always there to rely on each other. This is a friendship that spawned a TV series based off it. This is a friendship that went and inspired Rick and Morty, which is an incredibly popular show, which shows another friendship in itself. This is a friendship that lasts longer than this film, the longevity. With Indiana Jones, he gets on well with everyone. That's his character. He's quippy. He's friendly. He gets on with every part he's thrown with in every film, including the fourth film. So you can't exactly say there's the best duo between them, because Indy gets on with everyone.
Irrelevant point, because there's only one person Martin McFly doesn't get on with, and that is Biff. You want to talk things like it's a double act. You've got the motorbike sequence, everything. They feel like they're mates as well as father and son. It's a great dynamic. I'm sorry, but the Doctor invented time travel, and he's sitting there talking to a 16-year-old high school kid. I'm sorry, that's pretty dodgy, and it's hard to take that seriously. And you think of the great moments of Back to the Future, it's none of them being together on screen. Indiana Jones 3, you've got the aeroplane scene, you've got the tank scene, you've got the motorbike scene. With yours, all the key stuff is about Martin and his family, not the Doc. It just doesn't work. The double act, it's great because of its history across the three, but in one film, mine is way more.
In every single Indiana Jones film, they have an action sequence which you've rattled off there, which the companions have their scenes with Indiana Jones. With Marty and Doc, it is throughout the entire films. It is not only the action that comes from the films, but it is also just the moments of character building between them, kind of the confidence between them within their conversations and how they're able to communicate with each other. Marty provides that friendship for Doc, and Doc provides that adventure for Marty. And it works that well on screen that it's lasted way longer than the film itself has. It's gone on and done other things.
God almighty.
That deserves longer.
That was like
that deserves final.
This, and now I'm somewhere kind of like here. I haven't made a decision yet.
Can someone else go first?
George,
your argument.
Dave, you're up first.
Hurrah! Thanks. You bugger. Right. Okay then. We'll have to talk. I'm gonna have to talk this out. I have no idea which way it's gonna fall. I love the talking about Indiana Jones. I love the build up of that father figure that we hadn't had before. That he came in, and the Let It Go Junior, the Let It Go line is just, it's right up there with cinematic moments, especially in that trilogy. We don't count number 4. Over there it goes. So that was really good. Even though yes, there's the dodginess of the 16-year-old hanging out with an old scientist man, I do like all the points that Tate brought up, that this friendship, and not just a meeting, not just kind of we are people who have traveled together. They are like best friends every time they meet. And for me, I think we are looking at duos. So the fact that that friendship is so forming over the movies that they have, I'm gonna go with Marty and Doc.
Harry, have you got one yet, or are you still?
Yeah, I've got one. I can go if you like. Sure. To me, again, this is incredibly hard, and I'm not convinced of my answer, to be honest. Yeah, you both brought some fantastic points. Again, I think my biggest issue with your argument, George, was that you had so many points to make. You had so many good points that you just touched on a little of them, and I think it maybe would have been a little bit better to expand on them a little bit more. I think for that reason, because Tate had such a strong focus on this idea of the friendship of the duo, that I'm going to give it to Tate. But that was absurdly close, and I'm still not convinced that's the right answer.
Yeah, I'm still kind of up in the air with it as well. It honestly was neck and neck in terms of the arguments. Tate, you kind of like hammered home the strength of that bond between all the movies every single time we see them across all avenues of time, and George, you were kind of like playing on the more father and son thing, and I would have liked to have seen you sort of like focus in maybe more on that and hammer that home more when you kind of got onto the action scenes. Whilst they are great scenes and we do see that, you know, that duo between them, I think Tate did dismantle it a little bit where he said, well, he was back to his other argument of, well, we see him on action set pieces with other characters and the other things. So it was close, but I would probably have given it to Tate, but it was honestly like that all the way through.
Very, very close.
That was hard.
That should have been a final.
Yeah. That's like you need the extra time.
Oh.
My word.
So,
Okay.
Oh, on to another one now
Okay.
with this one. This wow. Okay.
we have
Oh,
Tate,
fuck 'em up.
prepare
Yeah.
yourself. We have Vincent Vega and Jules Winfield versus Will Hunting and Dr. Sean Maguire from Good Will Hunting. So, Tate, you are up first with Pulp Fiction. You will have a minute when you are ready.
Yeah, whenever you're ready, Tate.
Sure. Whenever you're watching Pulp Fiction, the best scenes, or at least some of the best scenes, involve these two as a duo. These two, when you watch them come onto screen, even at the start when they're talking about like Royale with cheese, they feel like they've been friends for so long before this film, and we're just taking a snapshot of their friendship in time. And it is so awesome to see that. They look like they could finish each other's sentences if that was on the table. That's how close they are as a duo. They're on the same page in every single thing. When they walk into the room and they're talking about getting the briefcase and talking about the burgers and everything like that, that entire scene, the dynamic between the two of them and the dynamic that they have with the people around them as a duo is unbelievably good. Their interactions with other people as a pair, you see them as a pair so much on the screen, especially towards the end with the whole the restaurant scene and everything like that. The way they work together, you know that they're partners. You know that they're in this together. And sure, the film does separate them at some points, and sure, one of them does die. Spoiler for Pulp Fiction. Oh, crap.
Good Will Hunting is a remarkable movie played by actors on their absolute A game. You can see when you watch this movie again, it holds up so well, and why it brought home Oscar Gold. The duo in the movie, they are two of the best characters in the movie. From a boy way... Sorry, guys. Best characters... Oh, Jesus. Ignore that. Two guys who have come... They're both broken. They're broken characters. And they come together to form a relationship, a partnership. They are starting out as a psychologist and somebody who he needs to get to be this maths genius, but it becomes so much more than that. He becomes not only a father figure, but a best friend and a guide. He has Ben Affleck, but that character doesn't give him exactly what he needs. Sean is the one who takes him through the journey that he has. For him to move on from the broken, beaten boy that he was to know that he needs to better the world with the information that he has inside of his head. Sean needs him as well. He's broken from losing his wife. He no longer has that love. This job that he has no...
You didn't sound very convincing with your argument there for that film, and you definitely haven't sold me on it because I haven't seen the film, so I can't really comment on how well it goes. All I know is that Ben Affleck is part of kind of that friendship with Will Hunting anyway in that film. But really, if you're looking at the best like duo here on this list, it has to be these two. It has to be these two. The chemistry that they have, it's undeniable. They are so tight in the film together. It's not even a contest at this point. Like all of their scenes combined, put together, you see that duo, it is the best on screen.
I'm going to go with, can you even class Jules and Vincent as a duo? Never mind a great one. I'll give you Jules is an incredible character, but at the end of the day, he is a babysitter for Vincent. Marcellus Wallace sends him along with the ride, but he has no faith in him. In fact, Vincent is kind of the cause for most of the mess-ups in that film. Jules wasn't there. When Jules isn't there with him, he messes everything up. He's a terrible, terrible character. So much so that Jules wants to leave. He wants to give up crime at the end of this movie. The fact that he messes up so badly, when he shoots the kid in the face, when he disses Wolf.
I'll go first on this one. I'm going to give it to Tate. I thought that the rebuttal was the chance to come back strong on that one after the main argument. But when you said that Vincent's kind of weak on his own, that to me as a rebuttal almost strengthened the argument as to why they're great as a duo. So that's where I come down onto it, because I was going to let it go to the rebuttal, but I felt like the rebuttal was going for that point helped strengthen Tate's argument for his duo, so I'm going to give it to Tate on this one.
Fair.
I'm going to give it to Tate. Just the opening argument. I thought you did very, very well to come back with that rebuttal. Done your research because I hadn't thought about stuff like that in Pulp Fiction. I just think Tate's opening argument was stronger. And as someone that also hasn't seen Good Will Hunting, I kind of echoed some of Tate's opinion. Granted, it doesn't really come into it for
Call
me.
yourselves a movie channel.
I've seen Good Will Hunting. I've seen it.
me
Thanks,
too.
Chris. Okay, all right, Chris.
I've seen
Okay.
my list for so long. I will say, I will echo George's earlier point, though, that I forgot that he's actually called Will Hunting in the movie. I guess that's...
No, I knew it was for Will Hunting.
I thought it was about two people that go hunting.
Yes, the deer hunter, you know.
I mean, I will say, not that it matters, but I'd also given this one to Tate as well. I just think the opening argument was a little bit stronger, and it's just the way this one went.
Yeah, cool.
So that is the next one through. So we are preparing for one of the more interesting ones, I think we can say. A hint of things to come. Maybe we could also say if you want to choose our videos. So next up, we have Chris and the Karate Kid series versus Fred and George Weasley from Harry Potter. So we have, I guess, the first franchise off, if you want to call it that. So this can be fun. Chris, you are up first, so I'm going to hand this over to you.
Whenever you're ready, Chris, go ahead.
There really is no contest here. There is just way more to dissect with the relationship between Daniel LaRusso and Mr. Miyagi. First and foremost, it's a coming-of-age story for Daniel, whose father passed away at a very young age. He's brought to this brand new place, brand new school, no friends, and he's got to try and make a new name for himself and find his place in this world. With this most unlikely friendship with Mr. Miyagi, he's just there in the background. He's just kind of like the resident handyman, maintenance worker. And through the two, Daniel LaRusso finds a father figure in Mr. Miyagi, and Mr. Miyagi finds a son figure, because Mr. Miyagi, throughout the film, there's this very tragic past where Mr. Miyagi's wife died in childbirth, his unborn child. So he never had that. They both never had the thing that they find with each other. It's not about the karate. It's about that bond. And as a double act, the banter, the student mentor aspects to it, the father and son, there are so many elements with this. Fred and George is just a comedic duo throughout every movie. They're so one note. They are never different in any film as the films progress. They're not even the main center.
Time.
So happy you said the word coming of age, because I just wrote down the word life, because my guys can't really come of age because one dies at the end of the last film. And as you said, they are so one night, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a double act. Double acts sometimes don't need to change. They don't need that emotion. However, we first see these at, they haven't even broken their voice yet. They haven't even hit puberty. And they're at the train station making jokes from film one. And that grows evolution to seeing them leave Hogwarts, to breaking all the rules, to taking out Umbridge, one of the best moments of the entire series. And then you see the delight that they set up their own business, that they've got the joke shop in the sixth film, and you love it. I think, look at where they started, from the poor Weasley family to running the only good place in Diagon Alley. Then you fast forward it, and then they were also fighting against Lord Voldemort's army. We see George lose his ear, and Fred's dead, baby. We get that moment from the final film. One of the most tragic moments is seeing the Weasley family all crying because they are the favourite family. They're the only functional family in Harry Potter, which is a really big thing, why they stand out. And to see one of the twins die.
Fred and George are barely characters. They're just archetypes. They're just set dressing in a greater whole. And throughout the majority of that franchise that you're talking about, they are the same, to the point where you talk about this tragic death of one of them. We don't even see that happen on screen. We spend so little time with them. There's just no impact to that death because it happens off screen, as with a lot of the side characters in that. I don't even need to go into the entire franchise of the Karate Kid of the trilogy, or even beyond that with this point, because I can do it all from movie one. There is more strength to the bond here as a duo, as an unlikely friendship, and more.
A friendship is not stronger than people being born as twins. To see a twin die is something I can't imagine people going through. Anyway, that being said, they're not one note. They can be one note, but the way you mention them, that they do the same thing, that's what you want from them. And they have these moments. They become more than characters, and the films need that comic relief. Now, Karate Kid, it's fine for what it is. It's the student-master mentorship, and we respect that. But there's something more fun about seeing people grow up and ultimately meet the end of said friendship in the most devastating fashion. I completely disagree. It's just seeing him dead is better than them showing it because you mourn with them because you don't know. Well thought.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a good one. That was a good one.
Oh, God.
I can go first. If
The silence is deafening.
Yeah, go for it.
That was very close. I think it was also a really interesting matchup. that was very hard for both sides to argue against because they're completely different sorts of double acts. I will say the defense of Fred and George was fantastic. Like,
Thank you.
The level of depth and subtlety that you gave to that performance that I never really considered before was fantastic. That being said, I just don't think you attacked the Karate Kid enough. I think it was you were constantly on the defensive, and you never really had that chance to sort of counter any of his arguments and go for the attack. So exactly. So with that resounding crane kick, it is going to have to go to Chris on this one.
I think I will go. I'm going to go the same way. I thought it was George to argue them for as well as you did, especially like the mention of how they took out Umbridge, which I think is a highlight moment for the two. But I think it's kind of the moment, and then that's they're kind of big and done. I just thought overall, Chris was right. The attack on them as the one note was really strong over this. And for me, that's the kind of moment I took the essence of one note for that taking out Umbridge. So I'm going with Chris on this for Karate Kid as well.
That's fine.
I would have gone with Chris as well. I think the point that swayed me the most. I had it in my head then what you just said. Now I've completely forgotten the words, but it was talking about the fact that they are very one note once again, and it slipped my mind. Come back to me. I mean, I would have given it to Chris, but I'm just trying to think of the actual words that we used. And what it was. I've just had a massive brain fart.
It's fine. So that goes through. So we've cleared the left-hand side of the board. Have all of those been unanimous votes?
I think so.
I believe so.
They have been, yeah.
We'll see what we did. Okay, this next fight, I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this one. This is definitely the most interesting one on the board for me. We have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood against Tom Hanks and Wilson. So we've got our first inanimate object that is going to be argued in this one. I'm looking forward to this one as a double act. This is going to be great.
Yeah, me too. Whenever you're ready, guys, take a little breather if you need to. Calm down. But
I'm nervous, but I'm going to go for it.
Go for them.
Okay, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Let's take it back to the 60s, shall we, guys? We have here a stuntman and an actor. It's not something that films actually ever focus on. We don't get to see much in dramas. When we think about films about actors, we don't get the environment of other people. So, scene one, we're introduced to Brad Pitt being Leo's stuntman. And you're going to, okay, they're a Bond. Then you cut to the badass music. You get them getting in the car together. They're just driving around. And immediately we've got vibes that these are two cool guys we just want to hang out with. And that's the first sort of 5 minutes. And then what progresses over the next 2.5 hours is basically just a film about two good mates. It's a day in the life of Brad. It's a day in the life of Leo, how they work with one another. And it reaches a point when they're sitting on the sofa with a beer and pizza and you think, as a double act, yeah, that's the kind of dream. You want to have that mate that you can just chill out with, that you can hang out with all the time because they're two cool dudes and there's nothing wrong with that. You want to be with them because they echo the coolness. There's a reason it's Leo and Brad, and you can look at them not as Leo and Brad, but as Cliff and Rick. They become this double act rather than the actors, which is a really big thing because in Castaway, I'm sorry, it's just another Tom Hanks film. Every Tom Hanks film.
When you go into watching Castaway, you think, I'm going to watch Tom Hanks getting stranded on a desert island. When you come out of watching Castaway and when you go to watch it back again and again and again, what you get is the friendship between a man and what is an inanimate object. And it's an unusual choice for the bracket, but I genuinely think it deserves to be here and it deserves to be on that top spot of the best double act. This is a man who projects his conscience onto an object so that he's able to survive on an island. It's an object that saves him from committing suicide and the object that further pushes him to trying to get back home. And in the end, the object that does eventually give him the mental capacity to get home. It gives him something to talk to on the island, something to voice his own opinions, something to talk things out with, something to do, something to keep him occupied apart from trying to get home. I like the double act that is in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but they have better scenes when they're apart, such as the Jet Li scene and when Leo's talking to the young actress. Their scenes are better when they're done apart from each other. I like the...
Thanks for bringing up the conscience, because you're right. The character is his conscience. It's a figure of him. Well, Rick Dalton's bipolar in this film. We get the scenes of him attacking that other side of him. It adds nothing. It's great that it's a ball, but let's take this to Wilson, shall we? When he gets home, when he reunites with his family, obviously finds out the wife has moved on and stuff, he doesn't mention Wilson again. Wilson has his moments and he's done. At the end of my film, Rick Dalton gets into that ambulance, right? Cliff's in the ambulance. He says, I'll bring you bagels in the morning. They're going to be with him tomorrow. That is the sign of the friendship of the Blacks.
Have you not seen that the first thing he buys when he gets home is Wilson the volleyball? That's in the car when he gets home. That is the first thing that he gets. That is how strong the friendship is. It's the long-lasting memory of him on the island. The most heartbreaking scene of when Wilson drifts away and he has to choose between drowning or saving his friend, and he has to make the horrifying choice that his survival has been helped by Wilson, and that's the thing that's kept him alive. That is unbelievable, that his psyche has projected that onto himself and he's made that decision with Wilson. And when he kicks Wilson away and then says, I'm sorry, Wilson, I'm sorry, you feel it.
Oh, my God.
Can I contest something? Buying now, I'm not doing off record. Buying something new doesn't mean it's the same thing.
But it's the first thing he gets when going off the island.
But it's
in
not
the
Wilson,
film.
though. It's not.
It is a Wilson
seconds.
volleyball. It's part of my argument.
I want to contest that for you guys to have a think about, because to me that's a new Wilson.
I want to say that is contesting after the argument.
It's a symbol of him. It's not the same one. It's not the same. Yeah. Oh, okay. That will be taken into consideration. Yeah.
I think it's still relevant, though. I think it's still definitely an important point to bring up.
Oh,
no idea.
Okay. I'm going to talk this out. My God, the rounds between you guys, like, this is just.
It's always the Tate and George fights. Always the Tate and George fight.
Because of that, and I do think it was relevant to bring that up because we do have to sort of like take it to the fact checker at the end, because it's not exact. It's a symbol of that friendship, but it's not exactly that friendship, that bond, that double act with that exact same thing. I am going to give it to George on that, because if that's the case, then the rebuttal kind of weakens a little bit for me. I do think that Tate, you definitely had the strongest opening argument. But I think because of that, I am going to take that.
I think that argument should have been in George's fight.
I think I
could have rebuttal a rebuttal, could I?
No,
I think it's worth. I think it's worth raising just to like get some clarity out there with the end of the film. It's ambiguous, so I'm on the fence. But I am going to just sway it to George just because of that.
I will go in, and I think it's a valid argument about the ball that he has at the end, and I do believe that he wanted that as a symbol of that friendship that he had with, yes, not that exact ball, but another version of that, and he needed that. So for me, that was a really good point of argument, that he has this inanimate object, and yes, he loses it on the way, but get back to his actual real life, that he needs this symbol of his time on that island as well, and that symbol was Wilson. So for me, I'm going to give it a Tate.
Oh, don't make me choose. I really don't know, because that fight was so neck and neck. I thought the opening arguments were both really strong. I thought you both had the perfect descriptions of why your movies and your double acts were so good. I think it all comes down to whether or not we accept the ball as Wilson or not. I think this is Schrodinger's ball or whatever. Man, I don't know. I'm going to give it to George on this one, because I think, while it's symbolic, I think George's point about the idea that at the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the friendship is still there. It's still continuing. I think that has a more powerful legacy than one that has ended and ultimately cannot be continued. It's really hard, but I'm going to give it to George. Good fight, guys.
I think Carl says it best in the comments right here. He says, that was such a brutal round. I was expecting someone to be calling out for Adrian at the end. Yeah, you're 2 for 2 on these rounds at the moment. So tough. So tough. But okay, so Leo and Brad go through to the next round.
Right, so next up, what we have is...
Jesus.
Wedding Crashers versus Toy Story. I'm not going to lie, Dave.
So anyway, if you want to put Toy Story through, that's
no.
No.
Chris beat Toy Story as the last one, so keeping it on the board. Wedding Crashers is a very wise choice. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to make you guys get on with it and bring up the animation.
Yeah, whenever you're ready, guys.
Wedding Crashers, a movie portrayed by Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn, and they are at their very best when they are working together. And this movie is exactly that. This is two people in tune as actors who portray not only friendship but almost brotherhood together in what they do. Yes, they start as characters who are out for food and sex, and that is it. But the growth in those characters over the time when they meet the loves of their lives and want to move on with that becomes this completely different thing. They break away from the characters that they had, maybe not together, but like was just said earlier, for two characters who can be separated because of a love and a broken heart to come back into each other's life partway through a wedding to still be known as "that's my best man," as he announces. I just think it's such a perfect representation of a perfect friendship. Yes, they're not always going to be together. Yes, they're not always going to see eye to eye. But when they do, they are a perfect pairing. They can finish the sentence. They know how to work with each other. They know exactly what the other one's thinking. They would.
You opened your argument there with that it's Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, and yeah, it is exactly that. They are exactly the same in every single film they are in together. They're not playing characters, they are playing themselves, and that does not make for a good double act, in my opinion. With mine, an animation, the first animated to be in computer animation, we don't just see voice actors, we see characters, Woody and Buzz, which initially does start out as a rivalry, and that's why I find this duo interesting, is we see how this, initially beginning with a rivalry, develops over the course of this franchise, not even just the franchise, but the first movie, where through Woody's hubris and through his selfishness, he throws them into this situation where it turns into a buddy road movie. They have to make the best of this bad situation. They have to tolerate each other. They have to go on this journey together and ultimately find that friendship, which we then see move into the sequels, where Buzz is risking his own life for Woody because he knows that Woody also did the same for him. We see them also, similar to Wedding Crashers, have not always seeing eye to eye, but the strength that they have as friends after everything they've gone through is just palpable. Oh, God.
Not always seeing eye to eye. Woody tries to kill Buzz in the early episodes, and then after, yes, they have a little bit of a friendship at the end of the first movie. They are barely together in the films going forward. In fact, Woody's doing more and more to separate himself away from Buzz. Buzz has to have his own adventures with the other toys because Woody has his own ideas, his own set morals, and where he wants to be in life. He finds new friends. He finds places that he doesn't want to he wants to move on. Yes, he has a love for Andy. And if this was an argument with him and Andy, I think you would have it absolutely. But for Buzz is a one-sided friendship.
Right there, you mentioned in your first argument, though, that when they're apart, when they're together, they're exactly the same. When they're apart, they make differences. That's not really like a good narrative arc with a double act. That if they always remain the same together, there's no growth there. And as I mentioned with the actors, it's just more been there, done that. With this, even with a double act, you can have moments where there's tension, where there's frame, because that just strengthens the bond between them when they do get back together or when the friendship is rekindled. They have different opinions on their current situation, whether they want to leave Andy, whether they want to stay with Andy.
That was very well put.
Okay, I want to jump in immediately before I completely forget my point. But I really, really liked the attack on Toy Story about them not being together or being separated and doing more stuff with other toys throughout the later films. I hadn't actually thought of it in that way. Their relationship is very strong in the first film, but it does kind of deter over time. I think I haven't seen Wedding Crashers in a long time, but you pitched it very well for why this friendship was so good, and it did remind me of parts of the film by doing that, so I'm going to give it to Wedding Crashers.
I'll go next. I'm also going to give it to Wedding Crashers. Again, for that attack on Toy Story is fantastic. Because again, I never considered the idea that their partnership gets weaker as the films goes on. It's actually a very valid point. Yeah, that's a surreal result for me. But yeah, Wedding Crashers it is.
Surreal result for you. Oh God.
I would have given it, even though I didn't want to, purely because of that attack at Toy Story, which has scarred me too. Because
I didn't even think of that. No, I didn't even think of that. That's
I was like, ooh.
I thought the killing bit might come up, and then you mentioned, they get further and further away across the next films, and yeah, like it's sad because it is for other reasons. But I don't see how. But Wedding Crashers goes through to the next
unanimously as well.
Yeah.
So, for my next round, can you just, when it comes back up, can you just play that bit again? And
that fight is going to be a tougher fight every round because it's not a well-versed film.
I like Wedding Crashers. I
think it's a very fun film. Yeah.
It was the best double act of them two you could have picked. But Dave, are you ready to go again? Because speaking of comedic double pain, you've now got Jay and Silent Bob going up against Peter B. Parker and Miles Morales. So you'll be first on the clock when you're ready.
Okay, whenever you're ready, buddy.
Jay and Silent Bob were started as two side characters in Kevin Smith's movie Clerks, the big breakout movie that got him into Hollywood, kind of. But yeah, these two one-note characters that started as drug dealers outside of a convenience store spawned on to not only be through several movies, up to 8 movies now, and also show up in Scream 3 as a cameo. But they also spawned their own 2 movies as well. These are characters that are loved. They are characters who, without each other, would not survive life. They can't get by without each other. They are not only friends, they are an ultimate duo. They would not leave one another's side. The fact that this movie is also that later movies, that Clerks 2 was a reward for Jay getting off heroin, for getting sober and clean, is why they got that movie. And it shows that love and friendship. And I just think it can't get any stronger than these two guys. And yes, they're pot dealers, maybe at the side of that. But I don't think that's important. I think what is the love that these two guys have for each other, that they would go across
time.
It's interesting you mentioned the 8 film factor because the one that came out last year, like no one watched it. Like you check the box office, it made like 1 million more than the first one 25 plus years ago. So it's really hard because I do like Kevin Smith, and Kevin Smith has become this icon, no doubt to this partnership because it's a great partnership on screen. But some things get overdone, and when it reaches a point where no one's really checking in on them anymore, it just kind of happens. You lose that momentum you had. You lose that, everyone speaks about Clarks. They speak about Morats, and they speak of the double act themselves, but it's just something that's just dropped off the scale. Meanwhile, you get to Spider-Verse, bringing them back again, back in a row. Yeah. Peter B. Parker and Miles. So you might think Student Mentor because there is that absolutely, but both of them compensate one another. You got Peter B. Parker, who is basically depressed. He's got fat. Mary Jane's left him. He's got all these personal issues, and he's giving his all to help this kid be better than what he could be. At the same time, you got Miles, who is helping him repair his relationship with Mary Jane. They compensate one another because...
I don't think you can count these as a duo. I think there's too many of an ensemble around them that want to help Miles Morales get to be the person he needs to be. Miles was always going to get there. He didn't need Peter B. Parker. Yes, Peter B. Parker comes through. And really, it's only a passing resemblance to the Peter Parker that died, that Miles Morales saw die, that connects him to this guy. He has no actual real connection to him, no matter how he feels that he's going to pull him through. I think the fact that he had Aunt May there, the fact he had not Mary Jane, that he had Gwen Stacy there, was probably going to be a bigger...
I shoot down the ensemble stuff. P.B. Parker's the first one he meets. He's the last one he says goodbye to. The others are an ensemble. They add in, they have their moments of humor. They have their moments, but they don't have the character arc that Miles and P.B. Parker have. And that is the strength of the double act. We're not going to get all of them back in the sequel, but we can guarantee the one who we will have, who does compensate. And I think that is the most important. When you have an ensemble, but 2 of them stick out more than anything else, that is the sign of a great double act. It's much better than something that gets overused that everyone's sick and tired of. And if they didn't come back, no one would care. But when mine come back, everyone will be watching.
Oh,
well played. Really hard.
I love Spider-Verse so much. I hardly wrote a note down about it. It's like I don't even know how to attack it.
Yeah, welcome to our world from last time.
I
know. Jesus. I think based on the rebuttal, I think I'm going to give that to George because, interestingly, I remember when it was initially picked, just sort of off air, I also was mentioning I feel like that's more of an ensemble film than anything else, but George kind of cemented in his rebuttal there why it would still count as a double act. It begins the film with them. He's the last one that he speaks to, and that's definitely given more of the focus, I thought. And I thought his argument as well, at however many years on, it's probably the same audiences there from the first one in terms of, Jay and Silent Bob, but it hasn't really grown past that. If it wasn't there, no one would miss it. And that was kind of what the argument that stuck out for me the most. So I'd give this one to Spider-Verse.
I'm going to cross-examine that because with Dave's point of the fact that the people who do watch it are there for that relationship across these films that have spawned into various different franchises, I liked that fact. I liked that you argued for that. I haven't seen Jay and Silent Bob. George did a very good kind of thing of kind of downplaying the later films, but I do think your argument at the start, Dave, was a lot stronger for why Jay and Silent Bob is an important duo more than George did. George did a lot of defending in that fight against your point in the rebuttal. I think he did a very good job there, but I think just like solely based on the first argument, I'm going to give this to Dave and send it to a tiebreaker, which means Harry once again.
I'm starting to enjoy being the judge less and less.
We'll switch back next time, don't worry.
I'm going to talk this one out a little bit because during these last couple of minutes, I've gone back and forth a lot of times on it. I think Dave's opening argument was really strong. I thought the idea of like the fact that their relationship was so strong that they went from being side characters to being the central focus of their own film is a really good one. It really hammers home how important that relationship is. And again, I thought the attack on Spider-Verse was really well done. But then George came back with that rebuttal, which is a fantastic rebuttal, and kind of just really negated that. But then I think, I think I'm going to have to give this one to Dave because I just think that opening argument was so well balanced and it felt so prepared. You were like, okay, these are my points, hammering them home, come at me, bro. And it worked.
Dave is coming through in the second half here, isn't he?
Yeah. The only Kevin Smith film I've seen is The Force Awakens, so I'm quite happy to get that.
It's an amazing thing when you talk to people like Kevin Smith was like, who? Like, oh, it's okay.
Everyone should go watch Dogma. It's his best film.
Yes, it is.
Right, so guys, we are rounding off round one with one of the easily hardest
heavyweight fight. It's a heavyweight
one
fight.
I am dreading. It's the two dramas together.
This is awesome.
We have Chris and Rain Man versus. No, sorry, Tate and Rain Man versus Chris and Shawshank. Sorry, my photo out of Shawshank. So, Chris, you're going to be first. No, why do I keep? I've written it the wrong way around. Tate's up first. Ignore that. I written it the wrong way around. Right. So yes, Tate's up first. He'll have 1 minute. Then Chris comes back with Shawshank.
Okay, Tate. Whenever you're ready, buddy.
The duo that went on to win Best Picture, the duo that won them the Best Picture, the acting talent in this film between these two is phenomenal. This is Dustin Hoffman's just absolute role of a lifetime. It is unbelievably good. And Tom Cruise also does a fantastic role, which is an absolute crime he didn't get nominated for a supporting actor Oscar in. The duo in this film is a very interesting one. I think it's a very unique one on this list because it is a brother's relationship, but it is one between one who can communicate very easily and has a very set goal, and one who has struggles with it. He has high-functioning autism. And the main aim of the film is the guy, Tom Cruise, who wants to go and get the money from his inheritance, wants to take it from his brother. And so he takes him on, he basically kidnaps him. And that's how it starts. And it ends up being an amazing road trip where not only Tom Cruise goes from, I'm just like taking care of you for the money, I'm having to deal with you, I'm getting frustrated and angry, to a point where he is begging for them to stay together, begging to people. So they can...
Anyone who takes advantage of anyone with autism is an irreparably unlikable character for me, regardless of the arc they go through. That is damning right from the off. And also the actual, Dustin Hoffman does do a fantastic performance in that film, Rayman not taking it away from him. But the condition itself was greatly hyperbolized. It's actually two conditions mashed into one, which is incredibly, to the level he is in that film, is incredibly rare. So as a depiction of autism, it's not exactly a realistic one either. The friendship in Shawshank Redemption, Andy Dufresne and Red, is really a story about hope, which is, yes, they're lifelong friends through it. They spend 19 years together in Shawshank Redemption, but it's a story of hope in that Red has lost hope completely. He goes to his parole boards and he's just getting denied and denied. And he gets to a point where he doesn't care. He's like, this is my future. Andy comes in, completely throws a loop in the mix. And Andy teaches Red hope and the importance of that, and to hold on to that, and that there is a chance to look past fear and to get out of incarceration. And,
there is so much more happening in Shawshank than there is past this friendship, though. There's stuff going on with the prison guards. There's stuff going on with other relationships in the actual prison. Rain Man is a film about this relationship, this entire relationship. And yes, it is completely unforgivable how Tom Cruise treats Dustin Hoffman at the start of the film as the Babbitt brothers. But throughout the film, you see him admit to his ways and try and change it. You see him lose his relationships. You see him try and build it up with him, and him begging and crying at the end and saying, "I'll be seeing you soon," and learning with it.
Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman, they start as estranged brothers, and at the end, he leaves him. We don't know what's going to happen at that film. We've just got to take a person's word for it who is trying to take advantage of an autistic person. That's not a very good ending for me. There is a point to my film ending with Andy, Red reuniting with Andy in essentially paradise. He has saved this place for him in paradise, the ultimate redemption, the Shawshank Redemption, which is their friendship, the culmination of it, that beautiful moment at the end, one of the biggest tearjerkers in cinema history. And he's made it.
Time.
That was well fought.
I'm going first, so I'll be another tiebreaker. I'm going first. Rain Man is an incredibly hard film to attack.
Yeah, it is.
But Chris, I thought you did that absolutely masterfully. I thought you had like the sensitivity, but with also the fantastic points. I think you really just sort of, I think you really nailed that one. So just for like the clinical precision of that attack, I'm gonna go one to Chris.
Dave, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Do you want to go, Al? Yeah.
Yeah.
Go?
The last rebuttal, Chris, the comparison of the endings of the films where it begins, even threw in the word The Shawshank Redemption. That's kind of like closing the curtains, because that was a decimation. And the thing is, it's because Tate couldn't attack Shawshank enough, and I didn't want to be. You can't really attack it. Like, you're both in a shit situation, unfortunately. So I think Chris had the power on that, but he had that levity, especially when you bring up the autism stuff as well.
I completely forgot that in my rebuttal, because they do actually mention that he's got 2 conditions in the film, and I just completely forgot what the other condition was, so I couldn't say it.
I think it's. I actually had to.
They do actually mention the 2 conditions, but I couldn't rebuttal it because I didn't know the condition that other than the high functioning autism.
I think I'm going to give again a clean sweep on this. I think the rebuttal, the first rebuttal of the attack on autism and how it's portrayed, a brother taking advantage, and that you're right, when they separate at the end of the movie, that you don't really know what's going to happen with that relationship. To the ending of Shawshank, you're right, taking him into paradise is an absolutely perfect way of saying it, and for me that won the fight.
That was the one I was dreading as well. I was like, I said to all of you, I can't.
I knew that you watched this film today, Chris, and I was like, oh, fuck.
I do. Rain Man's a fantastic film.
It's an unbelievably good film.
You could tell how prepared you were going into that fight. You were like, right, I've got these points. I know how to attack this. I can do this, and it paid off. I think really.
Okay. Well, George goes over the brackets and what has gone from what happened. I am going to go to the toilet.
So, guys, looking at the round 1, we've got a couple of steps of round 2. We have Legolas and Gimli versus Doc Brown and Marty, which is going to be 2 trilogies at one each other. Pulp Fiction versus Cricket. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood versus Wedding Crashers. And we have Jay and Silent Bob versus Shawshank Redemption. So, sorry, I'm laughing with that. The worst thing about Shawshank is the bottom corner, so it's always going to be the last one read out as well. Like, it's so wedged there.
Hey, we don't know how the arguments are going to be, okay? Like, I may have peaked too soon with Shawshank. Like, I might have nothing left in the tank for it. I might bottle it.
If you think I had any points about any of the movies, as I thought any of these would get through, you are sorely mistaken, my friend.
Okay. Just looking at it, any things that are just like massively jumped out to us? I know, like last time we did animation, there was
Wedding Crashers getting through.
That's the one that's just like.
I don't think many of us saw that coming. But then again, I thought when we did the drafts, behind the scenes stuff, I thought David picked incredibly smart there. Especially to put Wedding Crashers high up as well. So
I still think there's some really strong fights in this going into this next round as well. Like really, really strong fights.
We do.
I think it's nice that we've still got like quite a nice variety of different ones as well. Like we've still got some comedic ones, got some serious ones, got some mentor-mentee relationship ones. I think it's very interesting.
What I think is a really nice thing as well. The bracket that we came into when we started before this, it's not all of the. If you went to somebody, name the duos that you'd see in this fight. What, Doc and Marty maybe in this, and Indiana Jones was probably two of them. No others outside of that. Have we probably got duos that aren't essentially people would go straight to, and I really like that side of it as well.
I think the big one we spoke about was probably Dumb and Dumber, and Han and Chewie maybe.
Yeah.
C-3PO R2D2 was also mentioned as well. Like all of them, we could probably get another bracket out of this, I'm sure, but there was definitely some big ones that were left on the cutting room floor.
No one been going near Fight Club, but I think that could have easily been a bracket.
I mean, personally, the lack of Owen Wilson and Steve Coogan from Night at the Museum is outrageous.
Oh man.
Okay. Are we ready to take it on? God, up first.
We are. So we got a couple of repeats. Chris, brace yourself. So up first we have Chris versus Tate. We have Lord of the Rings versus Back to the Future, which is going to be.
Is that another Chris versus Tate afterwards?
we have two in a row, but swapping sides.
Come on, Chris. Come on.
So prepare your voices because let's see.
This one's going to be really intense. I'm calling it now. Right, ready?
I'm ready.
Where you go?
Okay, my argument for this, I'm going to go to the origin of these guys' friendships. So, for me, the one from Back to the Future doesn't make sense in immediately how this friendship formed. We're introduced to Marty McFly, who's this kid who's kind of a slacker at school. He's kind of like a bad boy. He's playing in the rock band. He's got the girl. He wants the pickup truck just to go camping. Who's not particularly academic in any way. Why inherently would this friendship have formed with this mad professor who's scientifically minded? Why would he take him on as an apprentice? So Legolas and Gimli, for me, although they start out as why are you throwing these together, it's the point because those races and the significance of that and the point of that, years of xenophobia with these two races, and that's what their position is in the Fellowship. It's to show that everyone's coming together to unite against this evil, no matter all the whole strains of distrust and everything that's happened over the years between them, that those are sort of like the figureheads of those races reuniting during this entire conflict. And that's why it's more powerful to me as a duo, because it goes beyond the banter. Oh, God.
Who cares how the friendship is formed? The friendship is formed when the film has already started with Doc and Marty, and they are already good friends. We don't need to know the backstory behind that, because what we see on screen is the best double act, the best film friendship of all time. The way that they're able to reintroduce themselves to each other and still get along at various different points in time. It takes some convincing, but when he goes back in time, he has to go to the Doc and say, look, this is me, and they click immediately. You see that from the off. You get that straight away. With the Lord of the Rings franchises, there are so many other duos that are very good. I mean, we talked about this beforehand. You could do Smeagol and Gollum. That's a more intriguing dynamic between them. Think about it. It's a more intriguing dynamic between two kind of parts of the brain than it is with Legolas and Gimli, which is reasonably quite boring compared to other ones like Frodo and Sam and the adventure that they go on and the friendship that they build throughout the entire film. Doc and Marty is that key friendship which stays throughout the Back to the Future franchise, which is always there. And it's the main one that you go back to the film to watch it.
Time.
It doesn't even work as an odd couple kind of relationship in your film. It's not even like they come together under some common ground. It's just, it's funny because there's a mad professor there. And I'm not even talking about any of those other rival duos, because why do they even need to factor into the thing? The reason that I've picked Legolas and Gimli is because of the significance of that friendship that is developed over this trilogy and what it means for just the world itself, the whole when everything's rekindled at the end and evil is beaten, that these two are proof.
They both provide each other that thrive for adventure in the film, that thrive that everyone has when they're sat at home watching the Back to the Future films, the ability to go back in time, the ability to go and experiment with things. They give each other that in that friendship. They give so much more than Legolas and Gimli does, which is, I killed, good job. That friendship doesn't even go anywhere at the end. It just seems like it just plateaus off. At least you get the goodbye in Back to the Future Part 3. At least you get that moment where they've had their journey and it's come to an end and they can go on with their lives. That lasts longer than it does with Lord of the Rings.
I could go into the books, but I can't.
Yeah, I know. I could see the pain in your eyes. Then you're like,
the pain.
In appendices 9 of the
literally. Oh, okay.
I can go first on this one.
Yeah, go.
Tate, I think bringing up the arguments about Gordon Smeagol and Sam and Frodo was just a little bit off base. It was an interesting argument and one I'd like to hear more of in the future, but I don't think it was particularly relevant to this argument. And I think Chris dismantled that very quickly in his rebuttal. That being said, I think overall you had the strongest argument because I think you touched on the idea of. I think the biggest argument that Chris had against you was the idea that you didn't know how this friendship was formed, and your point was, well, it doesn't matter because it works. And I think that's honestly a very powerful way of putting it. So I'm going to give this one to Tate.
Dave?
Yeah, I mean, it's just as you've explained. I think you explained really well that I think there's just more to the friendship, and was argue better that they do have this growing friendship that you're right, we don't need to see the start of, and that it's there and it already seems so tight. I think is a really good point. So yeah, for me it's Back to the Future. I
would have gone Chris. I just kind of interpreted that a very different way. That he's right. Why would they be friends? Granted, Tate then ended that point. I thought Chris had an overall stronger argument, especially when I was lost at the Smeagol. You listed double X the worst than the one that was already there, so I was a bit lost. But Tate does go through, so that is Gimli and Legolas are out. So guys, have you caught your breath? Because you're about to go once more. This time Tate will be up first, and Chris will be next because he has Pulp Fiction versus Karate Kid in that order.
Another one that's going to be brutal, I imagine. You guys ready?
Yeah.
You guys need a second to have a drink or anything? Or... No? Okay. Whenever you're ready then, buddy.
I mean, we can go on to talk about the best double act on screen. This is probably the most iconic double act on screen. You always see like these two on posters in people's rooms. You see it with people kind of quoting their conversations and stuff like that. This lasted way longer than it should have done past pop culture, and it has lasted so much longer than that in itself. These two are together on screen, and you know they click so well. Their conversations that they have are just talking about random shit, and it works. Just talking about their daily lives, talking about royales with cheese, their interactions with the other characters in the film itself makes them a fantastic couple to see. Just working together as actors, working together as partners on the screen. It is undeniably the most iconic on this list. Now, with Karate Kid, I've only seen the first film, so I can't see how much further than that it develops. I have, however, seen Cobra Kai, and I mean, they've gone and tried to do it again.
The thing is with Pulp Fiction is that it's the look, isn't it? It's the business suits, it's the guns, it's the the biblical speech and everything like that. That's what it is. But fundamentally, there's just way more going on with Karate Kid in that, yes, it is like a father and son thing, this unlikely friendship that just happens almost by chance, but it's the life lessons that it gives. And it's not just sort of like centered on this trilogy. It is setting Daniel up for his life. He is giving him lessons that are not just pertaining to karate. This is what I mean. It elevates above karate. Although it's called The Karate Kid, it's really about just these two people meeting at exactly the right time that they need to and bringing each other up. And that, to me, says more about a duo than two cool hitmen on a job. And again, like the film, how it's structured, it goes away from them for a long time. It's constantly chopping and changing. They're never sort of the focus. Your focus is pulled here, this way and that. Karate Kid keeps its focus and nails it with pinpoint precision throughout from beginning to end. And it's one of the most emotional.
Do you know what? Maybe it is the look, and I like it because that is the look. That is the thing that people look at and go, yeah, that's cool. That is a cool double act. That is a cool duo. And do you know why? It is how they're dressed. It is how they act. It is how they interact with other people. And that's what makes them so good. That's the point. The point is that with you two, like your pick of Mr. Miyagi and Daniel LaRusso, they kind of just do their own thing. They go to the tournament. There's different relationships in that film which kind of happen throughout. With Vincent
there are other relationships that happen, but it's always centered about that coming of age, and Miyagi just helps drive that point and just keeps him on the straight and narrow throughout the entire trilogy. He's always there for him, and even in Karate Kid 2, where there's a moment of weakness in Mr. Miyagi, and he's crying about his family history and his father that's passed away. Daniel is there to comfort him. Both of them complement each other, which is way more than can be said than two guys that look cool in a business suit and chat quippy dialogue at each other. Tarantino does that all the time. You want business suits, Reservoir Dogs does it, quippy dialogue. Oh, God.
Wow.
I don't have an argument yet, but Chris, you stop calling it the Karate Kid, I'm going to punch you.
Sorry, habit. Boba Fett, like it's just, you start saying it one thing, yeah, it sticks.
And that's why I'm picking Tate.
I'll take that. That's one vote.
Fuck you and your regional accent, like. We're common as muck. We don't know how to speak the Queen's English, I'm afraid. I apologise.
I'm willing to jump in here. It's been a long time since I've seen Karate Kid, so yeah, coming up soon, guys. Anyway, so I love Pulp Fiction, and obviously I've got a massive attachment to both of them. And I was expecting a different type of attack. However, the one we had, you kind of reduced them to like atoms, like they just look cool and they throw quips. And then Tate kind of agreed with that, but then he chucked in saying that's why they're a great double acts, and I kind of got a bit lost there because that's not what makes them. I mean, that's why people like them, but I don't think that's what makes them a great double act. So Chris kind of went ahead then, but then he mentioned the Mr. Miyagi stuff, which I've only seen the first Karate Kid. So learning sort of development about other things, we didn't get that from Tate's argument. We didn't get enough of it, and that's what Chris was echoing. We see the same thing. So I've got to give this to Chris.
I will also be giving this to Chris. I thought the argument about the luck thing was what swayed it for me. I think them just being in suit, and you're right, they can get anything from that. And you got it just at the end that, yeah, you want suits, you go to Reservoir Dogs. It's the same thing in the movies that he kind of puts up there. And stylistically is not what makes the duo. So for me, that argument gave it to Chris for me.
I'm also going to give it to Chris, but for a different reason. I think that Tate actually recovered from their aesthetic is one of the main reasons they're likable really well, because I think that's absolutely a valid reason for why they're iconic and why they are so unique. But I think Chris's point at the end was just the fact that there's so much more emotional heart towards Mr. Miyagi and Daniel. That one really drove it home to me. It's a much more nuanced relationship. And yeah, so maybe it's Chris as well.
Before we continue, can we just get someone just to say the word karate, and then someone can edit that word over every single time that I've said karate, and it will be seamless.
I've known you a long time, and the word's been brought up a lot recently, and I have now started saying karate, and I've never said it once in my life until
I do want to say, the way that Miyagi says it in the film is karate, and that's way closer to the way that I say it than karate. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, but you don't have a strong Japanese accent.
I don't.
The point there, doesn't it?
And if you do put one on, we have to cut off your camera feed.
This just sounds like it's the Kraken argument from Dead Man's Chest. Like, Krocken's how it's pronounced in the original Scandinavian. Like, whatever. That was really tough because I had nothing against Pulp Fiction. Like, it's
Pulp Fiction is, as on my fire card, it's my favorite film. So like that was like strangling my own child, but that was really well thought.
Right. So next up, oh god,
this is
Hollywood versus Wedding.
This is a fight.
I'm at first. Sorry. Dave, you ready? Do you need a drink or anything?
No, I may need to make some notes, but other than that, let's go.
Okay.
And ready then, George.
Here's the difference of mine and yours. Let's talk about the films, because the double act is the core of each of these films. There's no denying that. Your film goes like every other comedy. It's always, especially when you bring the romance, like, they're both these guys, they crash weddings, these super girls, and they both learn, they both get couples at end. They go into the distance to crash another wedding, but they're two couples now. That's the way it's always going to be in those films, and it kind of makes it sad that we don't get this new take, this different stuff. Whereas when you get to mine, in my film, we would have expected the apparent murder of Sharon Tate, and instead we have Cliff and Rick take out the Manson gang, change history, because this is a fairy tale. And this is what it does so different. This is what makes them memorable. You've built them up for 2 hours plus, and then we're sat there fearing for their lives. When Rick's got his drink, he's out there swearing at them. They get that gun ready. I think, oh my God, he's about to die. 1 minute later, we've got Cliff in the doorstep. They've got the guns. He's high. Oh my God, he's about to die as well. We fear for them. We fear for everything. And we just don't get that with Wedding Crashers. And that's why mine resonates so high and above from the rest of them, because the point of this film is enhancing his double act.
I don't think you can throw that levity at Wedding Crashers to be in two such different genres of movie. I think Wedding Crashers does the partnership absolutely perfectly between two friends and two, as I said earlier, they are brothers that will go to these events. They will be the life and soul of the party. They will bring to someone's wedding a wedding they will always remember. For these two characters in your movie, it's just Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, whose title I forgot. They're just there to change history. And is it a fairy tale? Is it Tarantino just wanting us to kind of go, oh, look, they're going to change this history. This is what could have happened. But it's not what happened. And I think that's detrimental to those characters, that they do go on to change and save this girl. And I just don't think it's well done. I think it's one of Tarantino's worst movies, if I'm totally honest with you. I think Wedding Crashers itself is a perfect comedy film. It's something you can sit down with and enjoy this friendship and brotherhood, that they can be together all this time.
Sorry, we're discussing Tarantino's best film here. This is the most mature one because we don't get the Tarantinoisms, the fighting on until the last 10 minutes. And you mentioned mine, they're not that good, they're perfect. I'm sorry. And you mentioned it's unfair to compare them. It's not, because yours doesn't differentiate from any other comedy that's ever been made. The same style, same ending, so predictable. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make them better than mine. Mine are the head and above it. You want to be with them. You want to be in the car with them. You want to hang out with them. With your guys, you don't ever get that. You're just following the film because it's a good watch. But mine, you want to be there, and it's a shame that you can't.
A shaky actor and a stuntman, to me, does not make a good duo. Some guy who can punch Bruce Lee in the face. Oh, great. This is a classic comedy duo. These guys will go to the ends of the earth for each other. Yes, it's absolutely a comedy, and yes, it will take you to the same places a lot of comedies will, but this friendship is stronger than most comedies you would see. The fact that you can come back together in the end, to be best men at the wedding, to know that they're going to be on that journey forever together and with their newfound loves, it's not just the same ending you would always get. I just think that Tarantino just...
Very well played.
That was good. I enjoyed that.
I need to voice this. I need to voice this out because
voice it. Go.
There's some points I agree with. There's some points that are completely subjective, like the whole thing about which is Tarantino's best film, which isn't Tarantino's best film. I don't think it's his worst. I don't think it's his best. So I'm kind of like completely saying those two arguments are completely out the window, taking that completely out of it. I really like Dave's rebuttal. Just the way that he was able to talk about them going, like, it will happen forever. Like, that friendship, is solid and set, and it will continue going. And I know George spent a bit of time defending kind of the point on the whether it was the best Tarantino film or not. So that kind of took a bit of time away, but I'm kind of taking him because George had the stronger first argument, but Dave had the stronger rebuttal.
So who are you going with on that?
I mean, I did just say
shotgun answering second. I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Dave on this one.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna make it a tiebreaker because I'm gonna go for George. I'm just getting that out of the way. I think the argument was really interesting because a lot of the argument was focused on which is the better film and not which is the better double act, which I thought was a bit of a weakness, except for the fact that George just managed to squeeze in that one line at the end of his opening argument that these films exist to enhance the performances of the double acts, and I think that immediately strengthened his opening argument. And just from the strength of that opening argument, I'm going to give this one to George.
I'm also going to give this one to George. I agree with both of you that I think a lot of time was wasted on sort of it's his best, it's not his best, it's his best, it's not his best, completely subjective. The thing that actually took it for me was the final line of George's rebuttal, which was an argument that I haven't really thought about, where he said that because we spend so much time with these people, we actually want to be immersed in this world and hang out with them, which, to be fair, would take it away from being a duo, and then it's more of a group or like a, several, I guess, at that point. But I don't know. I thought that's an interesting argument that we haven't really brought up before, and he brought in that immersion that the film allows you, and I thought that was quite an interesting argument. So I'd give it to George for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I will commend Wedding Crashers.
That was a hard fight. Like,
You took out Toy Story, then had to go up against Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
And I still need to watch Wedding Crashers, and now
I've not seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, wow. Okay, okay. You argue that very well. I thought you had. Wow. Okay.
it's good. I'd recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable. Right, last round of round 2, guys.
Oh God. Oh God.
Jane, Silent Bob versus Red and Andy Dufresne. Shawshank versus Kevin Smith. And sorry, I keep saying Kevin Smith. I don't mean to. It's the last battle of round 2. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, Dave, whenever you're ready.
When we look at the characters in A Shawshank Redemption, and we see their ultimate goal to escape from prison. Yes, they are together throughout, and he's the one who probably helps him in prison. But then you're right, they go the separate ways right until the end. You're right, they're brought back together. I just think when we're talking about actual duos, Jay and Silent Bob are always going to be that. They are not going anywhere whether they're apart. They will always be together in whatever they do. They go to Hollywood to stop a movie being made about them. They meet God, and she loves them too, if God is really Alanis Morissette from Dogma. But this is a true duo. I can't see past that side of it. If we're looking at this as the argument is, we want to see these people who are together. Yes, I think The Shawshank Redemption is a brilliant film, and I'll give it that. But I don't think that is a duo. I don't see that as a perfect representation of it, whereas I do see that in the movies of Kevin Smith with Jay and Silent Bob.
Time.
Well time.
Jay and Silent Bob is a joke that is well past its sell-by date now at this point. There is barely any differentiation between the character that Kevin Smith plays in the film and Kevin Smith himself. The stoner that talks about geek culture and movies. That is Kevin Smith. There isn't really like a stretch of acting ability there, is there? Anything in terms of the rivalry there? Not the rivalry, sorry, the duo between them. It's tried and tested, and it's absolutely laughable that you say that Shawshank Redemption between Andy Dufresne and Red isn't a duo. It fundamentally is. It is the culmination of that film. It is the entire narrative, moral, everything that you can dissect and analyze in Shawshank Redemption is around those two and the strength of their friendship, where Andy Dufresne's this very silent person who wanders into prison with this mysterious past, and no one knows if he's really a bad guy or whatever, and they always keep their distance. But they spend 19 years together in this penitentiary, and yes, they escape, and yes, they're apart, but that just strengthens their return together at the very end of the film, which is where the whole crux of the story and the culmination of that duo.
A guy who comes into a prison who doesn't say much, so Silent Bob kind of character, to a guy who says a lot, like Jay. It just seems that these characters are taken, and yes, they are together. Yeah, I see what you're saying with your point that this is they're together for 19 years. Jay and Silent Bob have been together since they were so young. They have gone through all that time together as well. They have grown up together. They are, yes, are they still just stoners who like to sell outside? Yes. Are they guys who went to Hollywood and stopped movies? Are they guys who will always cover each other's back? Will they?
Yes, they have spent that amount of time together, but they haven't changed. They haven't developed in that time. My characters over the course of one film and of 19 years narratively change completely. They are transformed. That is the whole point of the film, that the prison, Shawshank, transforms these characters. They're just thrown together by fate and through the time they spend together. And ultimately, Andy, the biggest gesture of friendship at the end, saying, I'm going to get out of here and I want you to go to this place and I'm going to be there. I'm going to be waiting for you. Oh, damn it.
I can go first on this one.
How do you fight Shawshank?
I struggled with that as well.
How do I fight a film I haven't watched, or films? Different films.
It's hard, isn't it? It's hard because I've not seen any of them. It's the reputation of them.
They're real good, a lot of them. That being said, I'm going to give this one to Chris. I thought your opening argument was really strong because you talked about the idea that although obviously Shawshank is going to be a better film, the actual duo of Jay and Silent Bob is stronger, and I thought that was an interesting point. But then I think Chris had so much more passion in his when he was so committed to defending that film, and you just couldn't attack it for obvious reasons. So yeah, I'm going to go on to Chris.
I'm going to go the same. Chris had a stronger argument, and that's nothing on Dave. Dave, you did as well as you could against that film, but that's the key word. It's against that film. So I'm giving this one to Chris. So sorry, stronger argument.
I was going to say I don't think there was any flaws to that fight. I just think Chris had the stronger argument and had a lot more to work with his fight.
Yeah.
I don't think that's I don't think that's anything to go against the arguments made. I think that's just purely down to the film choice and the way that it was argued. So,
no, I do think there are two really strong arguments. Sorry, Karen.
I was going to say the difficult thing is the further you go through. I think this goes for every Battle of Brackets. You have to try and think of something new to argue and say about it. And I'm kind of, I don't know, drips and drabs on a few of these films now.
Yeah.
So we'll have to
Okay.
see.
Whilst George updates the bracket, I'm going to refill my water. Always a thing to do between rounds.
Absolutely. So, guys, in the round 2, we have our semi-finals lined up. We have Tate and Back to the Future versus Chris and the Karate Kids. And we have myself and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood versus Chris and The Shawshank Redemption. We have 4 completely different films. I think that's putting that lightly. This is quite unknown territory. I'm not going to lie. I'm crapping myself. It's been a long time since Shawshank. So, any standout matches? Any surprises yet again, guys?
So, everyone now say your pick for the winner because we need to see how badly this is going to age in about half an hour. So I feel like this could go any way whatsoever.
I think it's the one at the bottom right corner that always gets said last. It's scary.
I don't know. You know my thoughts on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as well, and it's damnably difficult to argue against something that you absolutely love. So, actually, this might be a question for Dave and Harry. We just had one from Carl come in. The first 4 Jay and Bob films are classics, but the reboot felt very lazy. I haven't seen any of these, so I don't know if you guys can weigh in on any of those.
No. I'd have to agree. To be fair, it's not great.
Yeah, there's one moment in the film that's in reboot that's really good between he kind of does, if you haven't seen his movies, but he does his third movie, Chasing Amy, which had Ben Affleck. And
I did love the Affleck scene, to be fair.
So Affleck appears as a cameo, and he has probably the best line about moving on and growing up in the movie, and it's actually probably one of Kevin Smith's most moving scenes he's written, and really well done. But yeah, I think after sort of Jay and Silent Bob, Dogma is probably the pinnacle of his career, and after that, it's kind of very much one note after that, and it is unfortunate. But I think he's such a good guy. I love Kevin Smith.
I mean, to be fair, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck in Dogma could have been a very solid choice for best double act, to be fair, because their relationship's fantastic. So I'd recommend that film to anyone who's watching.
Great movie.
Before we continue, I am just going to go refill mine. So if you guys can just hold the fort for a minute or so, I should.
Right, guys, quick one in the comments. Any other double acts we have missed out? Because I'm trying to. We spoke about a couple in the last break, so I'm just trying to think.
Baseball bat guy and Hammer Girl from Raid 2.
I think that could work.
From Spaceballs.
There was one I actually had, which was possibly going to be part of my bracket, but Michael Jordan, Bugs Bunny from Space Jam.
That's a great one, to be fair. I'm surprised we haven't had any superhero ones there. No Batman and Robin, no hero and sidekick or anything like that.
I kind of like that we stayed away from it.
What, like Big Daddy and Hit Girl?
Yeah, and Hit Girl, that's another great one. Like,
I don't know. I didn't actually think about.
Yeah,
because I feel like that's a really.
I feel like that would have been one of George's picks now.
I'm kind of annoyed. I'm annoyed I think of it now.
I would have done really well in the bracket as well. I would have done really well.
Considering how well Big Daddy did by himself, like, I mean,
yeah.
My God, and then you throw Hit Girl into the mix. Fuck, that probably would have won the bracket. Okay, I have to fight Chris for a third time in a row. Fuck's sake.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we're all ready for the semi-final. So Dave is now judging with Harry. So it's gonna be quite good fun, I think.
Back in my comfort zone.
Again, didn't expect Wedding Crashers or Kevin Smith. And I think did an incredible both of those. But now we're at the semi-finals. Is Tate and Back to the Future versus Chris and the Karate Kid. Getting the 80s going still. So, Tate, you're going to be at first when you are ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go for it, man.
You want to know what's better than a relationship that goes from nothing and then builds up into something good? A relationship that starts off good and becomes incredible, becomes phenomenal. And that is a relationship that you see here with Doc and Marty. You see them at the start and you see them getting along, you see them giving each other that kind of vibe for adventure, that entire thing of, oh, we're going to test out these experiments, I'm going to test out kind of the giant boombox, I'm going to test out the car. And then the crisis happens. He goes back in time, Doc is shot, he has to try and save him. And that's where this friendship pulls through. When he goes back to the past and in the first film alone, where it cements these two as the best film duo, you could consider the other films as well as enhancing that duo. But you immediately know from that first film that it is set, it is there. Because when he goes back, he gets on with him so quickly and gets on and does the job right so well that you just know that these two were made characters for each other. And that's what makes it so good, watching their dynamics on screen, watching them talk, watching them do all of their actions. I want to point out, in The Karate Kid 3, doesn't Danny DeLusso switch?
You said switch there, and I'm very good you brought that up, in that there is actual tension and stakes between the duo in my series of films with The Karate Kid. That sounds so alien for me to say that. But Back to the Future, as a franchise, yes, we see this friendship, but it's a friendship that's never tested. It stays constant, it stagnates, it doesn't alter, it doesn't change. And over a course of a trilogy, to me, that's just, it gets boring. And especially in the second film, they're barely in it together. The first film, granted, they're like this. In the second film, they just, repeat the first film. But Marty is away for a good chunk of that film, the entire second half of Back to the Future 2. And the film feels weaker because you're not getting a good standpoint with those two characters there. Whereas with mine, The Karate Kid, there's just way more there. There's father and son dynamics in there. And we see Daniel, who's this lost kid who's just looking for that father figure, and we get that with Mr. Miyagi. And over the course, Daniel does change, but Mr. Miyagi is the one that's bringing back. Oh God,
the unwavering friendship, and you say that is boring throughout the entire film. Sure, the second film is the weakest of the three, but don't take that away from the fact that their relationship is still solid and works in that film. This, you've already mentioned as well, the fact that, oh yeah, Mr. Miyagi and Danny is like a kind of father-son duo. It's a mentor and student duo, same as my film, but my film holds more longevity with it. It has more to say. Their relationship transcends time. Your relationship isn't unwavering. It breaks down.
It breaks down, but when it comes back, it is stronger than ever. And yes, Daniel does change sides very briefly in Karate Kid Part 3. But Mr. Miyagi, they're always there for each other to keep each other on the straight and narrow. You think that, the student-mentor dynamic, Mr. Miyagi is going to be always the one to get Daniel out of trouble or to keep him with life lessons. But it shows that age, can work both ways, in that Daniel, younger, can have lessons for Miyagi as well. At a completely different part of his life, they're both there for each other in different ways. Oh, God.
Wow.
Oh, these fights are tough.
I know. I'm on the ropes, man. I'm on the ropes at this point. I'm going to have another swig of water.
Never saw these fights going as tight as they have. Some of them just seem like so unmatched, but then you can see a line, you're like, oh, that's such a good point. Chris, I absolutely love the point, but after Tate had mentioned that they have this turning point where Daniel moves sort of over to Cobra Kai for a little bit, and I just thought it's a really good point that they have this relationship where not only does Daniel grow from Miyagi, but Miyagi grows from Daniel. And I'm going to, on the strength of just that sort of side of the argument, I'm going to give it to Karate Kid.
I probably switch between the new and the old. When you're in the moment, when you've been saying it for 27 years, yeah.
Ari,
I can go, I suppose. I'm not really sure, so I'm just going to talk and hopefully I'll come to a conclusion at some point. Honestly, that fight was so well matched. I thought you both had a little bit of a lack of focus in your opening arguments because you both were so averse to attacking the properties. I think you really struggled, but once you both get into your flow, those punches weren't held, pulled at all. I thought that was really well done. I think I'm probably going to give it to Tate because I think that his defense was just rock solid. I think he threw a lot at him and just none of it got through. Whereas I feel like a couple of his attacks, I don't know, this is so like vague and esoteric, but like you felt more threatened by a lot of his attacks, and your defenses seemed more desperate. Not to say they were weak defenses, but they just felt like you really were clutching at straws. And so for that reason, I'm going to give it to Tate.
That's fair.
So I'm going to talk out loud as well because I'm bringing it back to my basics, the attack and the defense. And I think Chris had... You both struggled attacking the other because you both clearly like one another's films, which brings me into a really good standing as a neutral. Someone that's only seen The Karate Kid 1 once, and someone that hasn't seen Back to the Future in a long time but has seen them multiple times, but isn't on the train with everyone else, not the literal train in the third film. So I've been waiting for people to attack because I couldn't attack Karate Kid. No one's been able to attack it. No one's been able to attack Back to the Future. So here we are. And Chris kind of, for me, won it in his opening when he mentioned that relationship doesn't change. That is my biggest issue with that. They're not tested was the word. And then Tate dug himself in the hole by bringing it into Karate Kid because it's someone that hasn't seen 2, 3, however many more the two are in together. Sorry, I don't know. I thought that was a really big thing for me that we don't see this duo get attacked, and whether people are going to interpret that differently. But for me, across a trilogy, and that was the point that you lose them in the second film, I couldn't see a return from that. I think Chris was struggling to argue it, but it was enough because you struggled because you like it and you didn't want to say it. I'm sorry, that's how I read it. So I'm going because I think there was just more in that because you both defended your films to the point. So I'm going for whoever had the best attack.
I felt like in my opening argument with that, where where your mind just kind of detaches for a second and you're in autopilot and you're not really conscious of what you're saying and your mouth just say that was that opening argument for me, and then I had to kind of get the focus back for the rebuttal. But yeah, okay.
It is very difficult fighting Karate Kid.
Again,
again after again. Like it's just.
Say, when you said 2 is the weakest, are you talking about the relationship with Doc Brown and Marty, or the film's the weakest? Because if you think
second's the best film,
I was talking about the relationship.
That's fine, okay, because we were otherwise about to have problems.
No. I said weak. I didn't say weakest. Like of the films, I said it is the weakest.
Yeah, no, that's how I took it. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, that's fine.
I was threatened.
Yeah.
Oh god, we're on to our next one. I don't even know where to start with this one.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood versus George. God, it's like the Schindler's List episode. You say the name. It's like Voldemort, isn't it? Like you've already.
I can't wait for this.
This is going to be fantastic.
I'm up first.
Okay, whenever you're ready, guys.
Okay, I'm going to just talk out loud here. So I've not seen Shawshank in a while, but I remember watching this, and it's one of the only films that lives up to its hype, all things given. However, and this is a big thing, because this does feature into the double act, that the film begins with being falsely put down in prison for the murder, and we know ultimately he's going to escape because he wouldn't have that reputation without doing it. And that's the film, not the double act. However, because that's so etched in there, that story arc, that's where I know it's ultimately going to go, and you have these other characters that come in. Apologies, I forgot the name of the old man. One of the saddest scenes I've ever seen in my life, where it gets killed. And I just don't think Morgan Freeman has that things to go with him, because I want my double act to compensate the film. I want it to compensate the plot. I want it to work with one another to see where it goes. And I think you could take Morgan Freeman out and you're going to have the same outcome as what was put on paper. Tarantino wrote this film. He wrote these pairings of one another because he knows that they need to coexist with one another. And that's another thing that I have for this. You need to bring in these A-listers to play these roles, but you've got to take away from them. One of these wins an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in a stacked year. The other one gets nominated. That's the quality of the performances.
Oh, the thing is with your double act in your film, I think it starts great in this very, realistic, infinitesimal detail recreation of the 60s Hollywood scene, and the friendship with Leo and Brad's character in that. I think that the ending, however, does definitely go into the realm of absurdity. When you've got Leo with a flamethrower, when you've got Cliff doing all these crazy things, it diminishes the strength and the realism of that friendship where they suddenly become superheroes at the end of the film. Whereas with mine, and I completely just immediately disagree with your opinion that Morgan Freeman doesn't have a point in the film or he's just pointless in the film. The story is about him. Andy Dufresne is the main character of the film, but the story and the Shawshank Redemption is about Red. So if you take Morgan Freeman out of that film, the whole film just completely crumbles. And Andy Dufresne's character serves as almost like this, it's almost like a Christ-like figure. It's like guiding him towards hope and Eventual Paradise at the end. That final shot of the beach at the end, completely juxtaposition of the very grey and dreary tones.
We see your guys' ending, and it's a beautiful ending. My guys, they're going to split up. It gets to that final scene. They come back from Italy. It's over. The last rodeo. They have their final night out with one another. It's sad. You think something's going to go wrong. It goes wrong. You say they're superheroes. No. They set the flamethrower up early in the film. They set up Brad Pitt being a quality stuntman by battering Bruce Lee. Everything was set up for that ending to make perfect sense. Even the cigarette, I completely disembowel that. I think my guys are the best double acts. They work better with one another. They progress the plot better, and they're just better to have on screen. You want more of them, but you don't want more from Andy Dufresne and Morgan Freeman. We want more Cliff Booth.
It's not a question of, I know they set it up. They did set it up in the screenplay. What I'm saying is tonally, it's not a question of setting it up. It was set up, but I'm saying that the tone of that film at the very end of the film completely changed it. And you talked about them breaking up. Wouldn't it have been more impactful as a duo to have that be the end of the film where they've gone through this huge adventure together and they're finally breaking up as the final scene? That would have hit me more. With this one here, you can't separate Andy Dufresne and Red because the two are so intrinsically linked into the story of the Shawshank Redemption, and that pairing and that friendship.
Oh my
God!
Jesus Christ!
Good job, guys. Good job.
Oh, that's hard, man.
Both of these deserve to go into the final for that fight.
Absolutely.
Half of these matches, we needed longer.
That felt like a final fight. That
was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I'm gonna go first though because I do have a decision. I really, really like the way that Chris talked about weaving the plot of the film into the characters and the characters being intrinsically needed. The fact that it is Red who has the Shawshank Redemption, the fact that without either one of these characters, that kind of takes completely away from all of the messages from the story. And I think George could have argued the same, but he didn't do it in his argument enough. So I'm going to give this to Chris.
The intrinsically linked is something I actually wrote down. It was said, and to be honest, the only thing the big thing that took me out of the argument of George, unfortunately, the attack was take out Morgan Freeman, and it doesn't really change this. You're right. This is his story. That was really jarring when you said it. Like, oh no, that he is this story. So for that big argument was what really saw me on. It was just such a moment saying, no, that's not right. Certainly not from. I know it's a point of view, but I don't think without Morgan Freeman that you get this movie. So yeah, I gave this to Chris on that.
Not that it matters now, but I think I would have given it to George. I think Chris focused too much on the idea of the tonal dissonance at the end of the film, which I don't think matters. I don't think that has any bearing on the double acts. And I think George's point of the fact that this was all foreshadowed, and in fact it was the way of showing these two working together as a team in the end. Like, I thought that was kind of the point. I think it was a very close fight, but I would have given that one to George.
George, man, you know how much I love that film, those characters.
I know. I've only seen Shawshank once. It was about 4 years.
Shawshank.
Yeah, it's not a film you're just going to whack on, is it? Like, oh,
no. Yeah, it's got to be there.
Oh, I need to see a man get raped in the shows today. Watch that.
You know what? It's been a very long time since I've gone back to these old style dramas and everything like that, and given them a good watch. And I've gone into this habit recently because I'm at home and stuff like that. If I'm not enjoying a film, I'll go onto my phone, I'll go onto like the internet and stuff like that, and I'll have it on as a tab and kind of be half watching it. When I watched my two films for my research, which I hadn't seen in a very long time, with Castaway and with Rain Man, I was glued to the screen throughout the entire films. And I'm sure if I went back and watched Shawshank, I would be absolutely glued to the screen on that one. I mean, Chris, you saw Castaway today, didn't you?
Not today. Not today. I have seen
you watched
it.
Rain Man today. You watched Rain Man today, didn't you?
I watched clips of Rain Man today.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Rain Man, fantastic.
Absolutely blew me away watching that, like, over the last couple of days. Putting Good Will Hunting again, just like the performance of Robin Williams in that movie is just incredible.
It's just that one speech he has on the bench, man. Like, it's just brutal. Love that film.
Like, all of these old films, which I know they haven't been forgotten, but I haven't gone back to them in a very long time. I'm thoroughly enjoying going back to these films. So I'm glad that this bracket actually happened, so I had the chance to go back and see them.
So like the 90s and early 2000s were really, really good for dramas like that. I think.
Even that, like, this has been a very varied bracket as far as like when the films were made. I think the only thing it's missing is like a film before like the 70s and stuff like that. If that was kind of thrown in, I was very tempted with Casablanca as one of my picks. But I thought that the relationship in that film was a lot stronger than the friendship in that film. So,
yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
I've not really watched anything.
George, once again,
Normal
doing the
shocks.
research.
We don't watch films on this channel.
I do my research. I don't have time to watch them fully. That's my issue.
George is now going to pull up the bracket, but Chris has won.
Yeah, it's been here for about 5 minutes. I knew this before I finished saying my sentences. Shawshank is in the final up against Karate Kids. Oh God, I said it.
Success.
That day.
Chris, pick if you want to fight someone. Pick whoever you want to fight. And
Okay.
I'm ruling myself out. I can't argue either.
Is anyone volunteering for any of them?
Dave, I believe you're up to date with Cobra Kai, aren't you, my friend?
I am. Yeah.
I shall delegate Daniel-san and Mr. Miyagi to you. I'll take Shawshank Redemption.
Thanks.
You can refuse. Here's the thing, though. You can refuse it if you want.
Like grenades, like you know.
Like you don't have to take it if you don't want to, Dave, unless you
feel like Captain America jumping on the pretend grenade, just holding it down. Get back. Oh, can I pass? Because I honestly.
Okay.
Is that okay? I am going to totally bottle it because I just don't have this arguing power over.
That's fair. Has anyone seen Karate Kid or Karate Kid or Shawshank recently?
I have fought against the Karate Kid in like 3 rounds now. I don't want to fight against it again. I do have a very interesting point against fighting against Shawshank again, but I don't think I'm strong enough to fight for the Karate Kid.
Does anyone want Karate Kid or Shawshank Redemption? For the love of God, like we've got to do this, folks. I can't have like this Gollum Smeagol thing with myself.
I will take it for the sake of kind of. I've seen Cobra Kai, so
have you seen the first Karate Kid film?
I've seen the first Karate Kid film.
You're good. You're fine. You're sorted.
Thanks, Tate. Thank you.
Yeah. A minute and a half over Karate Kid. Fucking hell. Jeez. Okay. Okay. Are we good? I'm up first. Fucking hell. Okay.
You got a minute and a half if you want it.
Good job.
Ready when you are, buddy.
Yeah. Something that you can see in these 2 films is that undeniably both sets of characters managed to get a bond together. However, I think the bond is a lot stronger between Daniel-san and Mr. Miyagi. I do genuinely believe that at the start, I mean, Daniel needs something in his life to kind of push him forwards, and Mr. Miyagi gives him that. And you've said in previous rounds, throughout the films, they give each other something to work off. They give each other something to build on. They give each other a lifeline and a good chance at life. And even moving past the films, we see that in Cobra Kai, that relationship, that friendship was the most unbelievably special thing for Daniel. That was just his entire childhood was resting on needing that father figure at that time. And that friendship is completely undeniable in the context of between these 2. When I watched Shawshank last, I enjoyed the film. But you've been talking a lot about all these different things that you take from watching Shawshank and saying that the Joe is the main thing you take. The main thing I take from the film is the escape, which honestly doesn't have anything really to do with Red. And the iconic poster, the iconic pose, the music that swells up in that moment, that's what I take away from the film. From the Karate Kid, I take away him going to the tournament and him winning the fight and having Miyagi in his corner and him always being by his side. They're attached at the hip. You never see them apart. With Shawshank, you see them interacting with other prisoners all the time. They're not always together. There's never that connection. They're good friends, but
the thing is with the Karate Kid is that, and I'm glad you mentioned the whole point of them sort of being together, but you kind of shot yourself in the foot there, where I know with circumstances with, you know, Pat passing away and everything, he obviously couldn't be in Cobra Kai, but we have seen these characters, both Mr. Miyagi himself and Daniel LaRusso alone, without the 2 together. We had the next Karate Kid, which continued Mr. Miyagi. It was Hilary Swank in that. No Daniel LaRusso to be seen, and that was still exactly the same character. We have Cobra Kai, where that is obviously just Daniel LaRusso on his own. So we have seen that pair apart from each other, whereas you physically can't take Andy Dufresne and Red apart. They need to be there for this story to happen. You say that the only thing that you remember is the escape sequence, and rightfully so, because that has so much bearing on the character of Red in that moment. That is the thing. that Andy Dufresne for 19 years has slowly been chipping away at this wall, has accomplished a feat that everyone laughed at. They just said, oh, it's not doable. There's no way that you're going to be able to get out of there with this little hammer. When he sees that instills the hope in him that it is possible, that Andy Dufresne is this just unwavering, unbreakable force of hope, which is then instilled into Red. And that, to me, as a duo, as a bond, yes, they have a friendship, but that kindling spirit right there in that one moment is the crux of the film. That is what gives Red the complete change of perception in the film, which makes him go to that parole meeting, says, I don't give a shit. And then he gets released and he fulfills his promise to his friend.
You say that your duo is the reason why the film has to take its pathing and stuff like that, but it's not the reason why people go back and watch it. It's just simply not. And with The Karate Kid, you go back and you watch that friendship blossom. You watch it grow. And that's the thing that sticks with me the most. You've talked about the next Karate Kid. Does anyone really talk about the next Karate Kid? Or do they talk about the Karate Kid 1, 2, and 3? Do they talk about Cobra Kai? No one cares about the Jaden Smith reboot and shit like that. But the fact that this friendship that was built over these films has gone on to spawn this franchise and to not only inspire people at home to go and pick up the sport and stuff like that by having that caring mentor and having that caring student. You have so much inspiration from these two characters in the film to go and do something. You have that. It gives more hope in that sense. It gives more kind of sense of achievement in that sense. The Shawshank, when it's boiled down to, is, yes, you've got that friendship, you've got that thing, you've even got the ending which links back to the name, but it's not what you remember from the film.
I wasn't talking about the Karate Kid remake because obviously that was a completely separate entity in itself. And you say that, people aren't talking about the next Karate Kid. You might be right there. Tell you what, they are talking about Cobra Kai. And guess what? That is just Daniel LaRusso and Johnny. And people are talking about that. Season 3 is coming out with season 4 well on the way. It's happening and people are talking about it. Whereas this, Shawshank Redemption, look, for the love of God, there is a reason that people keep going back to this film, and it is from the human emotion and the human bond and friendship that this film generates, and it does it absolutely masterfully. Frank Darabont, just absolute masterclass filmmaker in this one, easily his best film, and it's all down to the characters and what we feel. That's why we come back to films. That's our takeaway. It is the characters, it is the scenario, it is the journey that these characters go on, and there's nothing more heart-rendering and just the amazing feats that these characters go throughout the course of 19 years in this film, and that they overcome. And that's the takeaway of this film. It's overcoming that, and the friendship is the driving force of all basically what it's about.
This last fight wasn't meant to be this difficult.
I wasn't expecting to get anywhere with that.
I'm going to go first and put...
That was good, Tate. Well done.
I thought Tate did very well, considering he stepped in at the last second. And I thought he mentioned... I know Chris kind of took away from the fact that it was no one goes back to Jaden Smith, but he did bring into that dynamic that people go back for this. They don't talk about the others, and I think that is a key point of the Karate Kid films. Granted, the Cobra Kai thing comes into it, but I thought Tate's attack was stronger than I imagined for that. And I think Tate was on something when he said that people don't go back to Shawshank for the characters. I agree with that. This isn't anything to my choice, but people go back to Shawshank because everyone calls it the best film ever made, not the best characters. That's not included. That's just what I think.
Yeah.
So who are you going for?
Oh, sorry, Tate. No, that way. Sorry.
Oh, right, okay.
I hate this mirror thing, man.
I can go next. As I imagine is a bit of an upset, I'm also going to go for Tate. Because to me, I just think he had that one central argument that he expanded on so well. The idea that the reason we like Shawshank Redemption is because of the escape and the story, and the characters are important to that, but that's not the reason you go to it. Whereas with the Karate Kid, it's all about the characters, and that's absolutely true because the plot is but the characters are fantastic, and I don't know. I just thought that one point was so good. And I just don't think Chris's argument against it was like, no, it's not. Like there wasn't, like, I don't know. I felt like there wasn't anything to back up his punches, and so to me, I'm going to give that one to Tate.
Tate, you got a clean sweep, my friend, in the final. for coming into a fight that you had no right to have such a good argument for.
Once when I was like 10.
You played the point so well, and I think it really has helped with obviously hearing Chris fought for it really well right throughout the bracket. So to then be able to like build off some of that as well, you came in with this argument. It was just you put it through so well, and God, Shawshank is probably my second favorite movie of all time. So I really wanted to win, but I just think it came to the point where Tate had a fresh take on this argument that Chris had been making, and Chris, obviously, you get to this point and it's hard because you're kind of going over a lot of your similar points. So yeah, just on the strength of Tate's argument of the Karate Kid, it took it for me as well.
Madness.
There we go. The winner.
I've got to say for Chris, like, it's so hard to argue against a film that you've been arguing for the entire time because you can't be like, oh no, I can't think the relationship was that good, because obviously you did, because you argued it up until that point. So it's
after like I said, after arguing against the Karate Kid twice, I'm happy to argue for it because I've taken all of those points on board. Like I don't know what the fuck happens in Karate Kid 2. I mean, in Karate Kid 3, the only thing that I know is like he joins Cobra Kai, but I only know that from Cobra Kai. That's the only thing that I had.
The whole trilogy is just fantastic.
Yeah,
so good.
Honestly,
and how dare you take issue with Jaden Smith? No, it's awful.
I will say, I actually still haven't seen that film. I've actually heard as remakes go, it's not bad.
I haven't seen that film either. I haven't seen the next one.
It's not.
What was
it's
the
a kung fu story. It's not. It doesn't work. It's
if they called it the kung fu.
If we go in that far, it's kung fu in the original Karate Kid as well. It's not karate, it's kung fu. But like,
but you know what I mean. It shouldn't have had the title Karate Kid at all.
There was no point. Like,
I mean,
it was a totally pointless film.
I've had the IMDb up for Shawshank coming into this final fight, and something that Chris maybe could have benefited from, but the actual thing for the film is two imprisoned men bond over a number of years, find solace and eventual redemption through acts of common decency. That's all you had to say to win the fight.
Nice.
Just read the description of the film and you win the fight. But yeah.
But I still kind of won.
Yeah, you absolutely did, my friend.
Can we really give Chris that point? I mean, maybe we need to reproduce the system of half points, maybe.
I was actually going to say, I think half points for the person who argues against it is a good idea.
Half points if you're able to argue for something that isn't your own pick, but you win still. Yeah. We will discuss that afterwards. Maybe not for this round, but maybe for next round.
Or maybe not. So I get the win. Get it on the board. Thank you very much.
George, do you have the bracket?
I do have a bracket. Sorry, I had them ready ages ago. So Karate Kid does win. I'll give Chris's pronunciation as a sort of clap on the back for winning. It took out. I mean, we said Shawshank bottom right. It's always going to be the bottom right, the second one we speak about, and it delivered. And ultimately, Karate Kid came and took it out. I think that's one of the bigger upsets potentially.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't have thought it would go past the quarterfinals, to be honest. Karate Kid. I thought Pulp Fiction would have had it.
I thought it would be Pulp Fiction versus not Karate Kid, sorry, Pulp Fiction versus Shawshank. Why have I now forgotten?
I'll say Pulp Fiction versus Once Upon a Time in Hollywood would have been amazing. Like
that would have been superb.
Let's not get too excited, shall we?
No, I demand we redo the brackets.
But yes, talking about brackets, we obviously plan our brackets ahead and everything like that. We genuinely have the next bracket already planned, and we've got the one afterwards as well. I know we're doing it as a monthly basis. We may try and splash in one extra one before then, because we have planned them monthly, but we've been up in the pace recently, and I think we've all been enjoying them. All of us have been on, everything like that. But the next planned one was going to be for a Christmas-themed bracket, which I won't reveal the name of yet. But please stay tuned onto our socials because, I mean, we'll discuss this afterwards. The UK is going into another lockdown. We enjoy doing these, so we will see if there's going to be another one before then.
Absolutely. So I guess, let's finish with the socials then. Yeah. So But we've had Cole just mentioned there saying, really respectful fights again. But again, let us know what your best double act is. We missed a whole lot off this bracket, which we've mentioned some of them, countless ones to mention on there. So let us know some that you felt should have been featured in this bracket. And maybe if we do another one of these, they can feature in a future one. And of course, if you want to hear more information on future brackets and indeed all the other videos that we've got coming out, we've got some new shows now as well, our weekly Mandalorian reviews and the retro reviews. Go onto our Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy. And if you'd like to pick up any merch, we have a few t-shirt designs in the TeePublic link in the description down below. So feel free to check that out. This has been a blast. I'm very tired from all the arguing about films. I have finished my water, so we'll round off in a second. Once again, big thank you for Carl to tuning in tonight, and for all of our fighters tonight, and of course Harry jumping on for judging again. It's always a blast to do one of these, and appreciate you taking the time for jumping on tonight. And this has been fun. And before we finish, Dave, if you would like to talk about where people can find your channel and everything related to it.
Yeah, anyone wants to find a guy who's building model on YouTube of part where Bill's currently building the Terminator model, and I've built the DeLorean. You can go back and watch that, and an R2-D2. So yeah, you enjoy part work builds, come over to The Life of Brien over on YouTube.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Right, I've pretty much said everything I can, so we're going to round out. Carl, last minute, Shrek and Donkey. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So thank you again, and we'll see you on the next video, guys.